Alleluia. 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 A light of revelation to the Gentiles, and glory for your people Israel. Alleluia. The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. The days were completed for their purification according to the law of Moses. Mary and Joseph took Jesus up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord, just as it is written in the law of the Lord. Every male that opens the womb shall be consecrated to the Lord, and to offer the sacrifice of a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, in accordance with the dictate and the law of the Lord. Now there was a man in Jerusalem whose name was Simeon. This man was righteous and devout, awaiting the consolation of Israel. The Holy Spirit was upon him. It had been revealed to him by the Holy Spirit that he should not see death before he had seen the Christ of the Lord. He came in the Spirit in the temple, and when the parents brought in the child Jesus to perform the custom of the law in regard to him, he took him into his arms and blessed God, saying, "Now, Master, you may let your servant go in peace, according to your word. For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you prepared in the sight of all the peoples, a light for revelation to the Gentiles, and glory for your people Israel." The child's father and mother were amazed at what was said about him. And Simeon blessed them and said to Mary his mother, "Behold, this child is destined for the fall and rise of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be contradicted. And you yourself a sword will pierce, that the thoughts of many hearts may be revealed." There was also a prophetess Anna, the daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Asher. She was advanced in years, having lived 7 years with her husband after her marriage, and then as a widow until she was 84. She never left the temple, but worshipped night and day with fasting and prayer. And coming forward at that very time, she gave thanks to God and spoke about the child to all who were awaiting the redemption of Jerusalem. When they had fulfilled all the prescriptions of the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee to their own town of Nazareth. The child grew and became strong, filled with wisdom, and the favor of God was upon him. The Gospel of the Lord. Today is the Feast of the Presentation. In ancient days, it was called Candlemas. So 40 days after the birth of Jesus, Candlemas was the end of the Christmas season. That was prior to the Second Vatican Council, where ordinary time was invented and came into the liturgical calendar. So now Christmas season technically ends sooner, but traditionally it would last until February 2nd. There are many different traditions with this 40-day period. In many cultures, there is still a practice of 40 days after a baby is born to bring that child to the church and have a presentation after 40 days. Many of the Hispanics in our community still do that. We also have this rite of the blessing of the candles. So at the end of Mass, you guys can take candles home with you and to keep those candles in your homes as a reminder that you are to be a light to the world. Right? This idea of blessing candles comes from various traditions. You might be reminded of the Israelites wandering in the desert and being led by a pillar of fire. Right? And so Christ leads us as the light of the world. You might also think about the Feast of Hanukkah. Right? Hanukkah, which was originated during the time of the Maccabees, just a couple of centuries before the arrival of Jesus. When Antiochus Epiphanes IV, when he tried to eradicate the practice of Judaism in Jerusalem, he desecrated the temple and was forcing the Jews to participate in pagan sacrifices in the temple. And so the Maccabees led a 3-year revolt and ended up being successful. And when that 3 years was over, and they went to rededicate the temple on the 25th day of December, and a prefiguration of the birth of Jesus. Right? When they went back to purify and rededicate the temple, they found that all of the oil in the lamps, it was on the verge of running out. And they were able to find a small stash of oil, which would only last for one evening, and ended up lasting for 8 days. God kept the light of the menorahs alive for the people of Israel. And then finally, you see in the gospel reading today, this ultimate 40 days after the birth of Jesus was when his parents brought him into the temple, again, to be dedicated to the Lord, and also so that Mary could participate in the purification rites after giving birth. And we hear the famous words of the priest Simeon, who said, "Now, Master, you may let your servant go in peace. A light for revelation to the Gentiles you have prepared in the sight of all peoples, and my eyes have seen your salvation." A light for revelation to the Gentiles. Christ is the light of the world. So all these different reasons why we celebrate this feast of the presentation. And it's a good reminder to us that in the midst of this dark world, and make no mistake about it, it is a world of darkness. We are still not in our true home, and there is much injustice and much sinfulness and much evil. And in the midst of this dark and fallen world, we are not to contribute to the darkness, especially when the darkness attacks us. Rather, we are to be the light. Something that all of us should keep in mind, right, throughout the course of our days and throughout the course of our lives. There will be many times where we ourselves experience injustice and evil and hatred. But we must not respond by contributing to that darkness. And it must not surprise us. Even in the church, sometimes we can experience great darkness. We are to be the ones who bring the light.